not your typical noir. Stylish and witty, stylized and demented, Laura is a glamorous murder mystery that finds the intricate, unhealthy relationships among its cast of urbane characters much more enthralling than the clues scattered in our path.
What difference does it make what I say? You've made up your mind I'm guilty.
Are you?
Film noir is something there's an incredible amount of interest in. It's something that is taught in film schools. Filmmakers nowadays use the term, and when they're advertising their own movies and posters and so forth, they're saying it's a film noir, it's film noirish. That style of filmmaking has become very popular by younger directors. Interest in noir has been revived in the last 20 years, and so this film fits into that.
I think what differentiates noir from a crime drama, from a melodrama, from a gangster film, is its approach to the story and the characters.
It's a tangled story of obsessive love. Macpherson, infatuated with a corpse. Lydecker, obsessed not with Laura, but his idea of her as his creation.
The film noir does seem to encompass a lot of different areas. Laura, to me, is on the cusp, if you want to talk about film noir, because, first of all, there is no real femme fatale. I mean, she is a very wholesome, very positive, very wonderful woman. She doesn't lead anyone to destruction through her sexuality and through her charm. You know, draws in three different guys, four actually, but three central characters in the film.
Laura, I told you to watch out for this fella.
Can we go now?
I warned you.
And then there's Carpenter, clinging to her like a fungus.
It's too bad you didn't open that door Friday night, Carpenter.
The fact that Laura appears so late in the film is almost a dividing point between genres, because it is film noir for the first half, and then it seems to become something else. When the Dana Andrews character is in pursuit of Laura, that is in keeping with the scheme that, schematic that usually is followed in a lot of film noir. He's a much more dark character when he's in that first part of the film, much more like a film noir lead. And then once Laura shows up, then suddenly it becomes a romantic mystery.
Are you in love with him?
I don't see how I ever could have been.
Entrancingly romantic, dark and mysterious, thrilling, wickedly amusing, and entirely captivating. Laura received 5 Oscar nominations, including Best Supporting Actor for Webb, Best Director, and Best Screenplay, winning 1 for its luscious black and white photography.
The fact that Joseph Lachelle's photography is a very shadowy photography, a lot of night scenes, that all fits into the film noir mode. It's a crime film, which fits into the mode. But most importantly, the characters are complex, flawed characters, and that's very basic to noir. There's no one in here who is heroic, and there's no one in here who one could say, oh, well, that's a genuinely good person.
I was afraid you wouldn't think of hiding that shotgun.
What shotgun?
The one I gave you. You don't have to lie to me, darling. I'll stand by you.
Vincent Price is totally a social climber in this and not to be trusted. I never bought his explanation as to why the model who's killed in Gene Tierney's apartment is there in the first place. He says because he wanted to try to talk her out of her attraction to him, and I actually think he was over there just taking advantage of the fact that his fiancée was out of town in a very nice apartment.
Shelby's better for me. Why? Because I can afford him and understand him. He's no good, but he's what I want.
She's fabulous in the movie. I mean, she completely has no problem letting you know that she's being used. It's okay that she's being used, and in fact, because she's being used and he's a user and she's a usee, that they have some symbiosis, that works well. And she, out of no concern whatsoever for her niece, presents that argument to her that, he'd be better suited for me than he would for you because I'm this kind of person and he's that kind of person. And, if you'll just get out of the way, we can get on with our sickness.
We belong together because we're both weak and can't seem to help it. That's why I know he's capable of murder. He's like me.
I think that Dana Andrews is a hero in this film. It's almost comedic in some ways when he says, I need you to tell me the truth, are you still going to marry him? When she says no, and you see that moment of glee on his face.
What did you decide? I want the truth.
I decided not to marry him.
I'll see you in the morning. Good night.
Good night.
This is a guy who clearly, is compromised in terms of his investigation, man. He wants this woman to be innocent so he can claim her for his own. And I suppose that is probably his flaw, is that he's emotionally entangled with her, which in a lot of ways undercuts his integrity.
Something you confiscated in a raid on the kindergarten?
Clifton Webb is just a freak. He had several different ways of putting down people in the film.
McPherson, did it ever strike you that you're acting very strangely? It's a wonder you don't come here like a suitor with roses and a box of candy. Drugstore candy, of course.
Especially coming from that posture of the higher class guy who's dealing with all of these men who none of whom were worthy of her.
Oh, you recognize me. How splendid. Sit down, please.
Dana Andrews said, this is a pretty swank joint here, and he said, it's lavish.
Nice little place you have here, Mr. Lydecker.
It's lavish.
And then he goes on. But it was quite lavish, actually.
The incomparably gorgeous Jean Tierney. She was 24 when she did Laura. She made 5 movies with Dana Andrews and 4 with Vincent Price.
I approve of that hat.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Jean Tierney, who is, she's such a beautiful woman. She's someone who has, in the advertising business, has been able to, kind of move very quickly up the ladder. She kind of has it both ways, because in some ways it suggests that she's very ambitious, but she doesn't really catch any of the flack for being ambitious. You get the sense that she's going to succeed just by virtue of the fact that she's destined to, that she has a right to because she's so beautiful.
What's interesting about Preminger, and especially in Laura, is this objectivist approach to shooting. Laura consists mostly of wider shots, of American planned medium shots with 3 or 4 people in the shot. There's several times in Laura where Preminger actually cuts from a 4-shot to a 3-shot.
If he cut to a reaction, then by extension, the audience is to feel what that actor feels in terms of the reaction to what the other actor said or did. And that's loading it. No, he doesn't do anything. He lets you decide. Classic Hollywood and post-classical Hollywood, they decided for you. They told you who the goodie was, who the baddie was. Not so Preminger. He left it up to the audience. And that was very sophisticated. He believed in the intelligence of the American audience.
What other assumption is possible? Do you love this fellow Carpenter so much you risk your own safety to protect him?
My own safety? Do you suspect me?
I suspect nobody and everybody. I'm merely trying to get at the truth.
I found it interesting that there were several modern kinds of camera things that they did, whip pans and dollies, dolly moves off of a whip, which were kind of interesting, which you weren't seeing in 1944.
That opening scene with McPherson first walking around among Lydecker's possessions and going into the bathroom where you have Lydecker in this Romanesque tub and finally going into Lydecker's boudoir, if you will, is full of a very powerful sexual tension. It's not even that understated. I mean, it's right out there for everybody to see, and this is the opening of this movie.
I like the meeting of Laura and Waldo at the Algonquin Hotel for something very, very, very subtle. He's hardly looking at her. The entree has been served, and he is taking his fork and flipping things off. In other words, it's not to his liking. And I think this is absolutely hilarious. He's such a fuss budget, even in terms of his food at the Algonquin.
Would you mind turning that off?
Why don't you like it? It was one of Laura's favorites. Not exactly classical, but sweet.
I knew the melody, the song, Laura, before I saw the film. David Raxon was very proud of the score. He had this letter from his wife, who was in New York at the time, and he suddenly realized his sort of a Dear John letter calling the marriage off. And so he got very melancholy, but this tune came out from that feeling, from that letter. Monothematic scores were unheard of at that time. They would have different themes for different characters, and Laura just laid itself wonderfully for this approach. Of course, having a popular song come out of a movie of that popularity and having all the re-recordings, and I think Frank Sinatra recorded it 4 times, was quite remarkable.
There's a lot of noir that was influenced by Laura, particularly at Fox. Obviously, Preminger's own films, Where the Sidewalk Ends, Whirlpool, all made within the next 5 years.
Laura's influence can also be seen in other films dealing with obsessive love, such as Leave Her to Heaven, Vertigo, and Carmen Jones.
I think the twist in Laura, which is remarkable both when it came out as a novel and certainly as a movie, where you have one presumption during the first half of the movie and a totally different one during the second, is part of what makes it unusual and remarkable even today.
In my opinion, it's important for, a person of this modern culture to experience this movie, because I feel that the characters are so much more interesting than what you find in the modern day film.
I'll phone you in the morning.
Good night, Mark.
Get some sleep. Forget the whole thing like a bad dream.
Preminger does not leave us with the detective and Laura kissing. No. He goes to the clock, which is a emblem of Lydecker and his love for Laura and a control for Laura, because he has the same kind of clock, And of course, it's shot to hell. Actually, he shot it. He shot his own clock. He self-destructed.
Goodbye, Laura.
The ideas that it can crop up about people and people's doing things, why they do things and how they do things, and motivations, and begin to talk about what makes a human being, and maybe find out maybe something about yourself. Certainly other people, but maybe even about yourself. I don't think movies do that today. Laura does that.
The Cinema of Obsession. A journey on the dark side of life through a superficial culture of society and celebrity, pockmarked with treachery and selfishness. Amid the glitter lies a world of betrayal, and a tale well told in a memorable and enduring classic motion picture.